All right, back with the final video of a better NFL top 100. We are in the top 10 here. It's been a very fun list. I always enjoy doing this, so thank you to everybody who checked out any of these videos, even if this is your first video, because let's be honest, this is the one we're all here to talk about, right? Those first 9 were fun, but this is what we're here to discuss. The top 10 players in football, not taking positional value into account. Let's just get into it. Number 10, I'm still going Trent Williams. I don't think Trent Williams had his best year last year. I still think him not in his best year is a top 10 player. He is someone who I have put at number 1 on this list before. I believe that was last year I had him at number 1. Can't quite do that this year, but I still think he's a really good player and does a lot of really nice things for the 49ers. It's just that, he set the bar so high for himself that, a down year is still a top 10 player. So, yeah, that's why I have him here. We'll see, though, if he continues to fall in this list or not, given that he is starting to get up there in age. And number 9, Chris Jones, which, by the way, we're going to see a lot of 49ers and Chiefs on this list. In fact, that's, I believe, half the list is either over half the list. There's 6 players on the top 10 that either play for the Chiefs or the 49ers. Chris Jones, a Chief who, another guy I don't think is coming off of his best year. Very similar to Trent Williams, but is still, I would say, the best defensive tackle in football. And there's a lot of good defensive tackles in football right now. I mean, the way that he can win on a dime on some of these plays is incredible. And the only reason he doesn't get more credit than he deserves is because, or he doesn't get the credit he deserves, I would say, it's because he played in an era with Aaron Donald. So, that kind of hurt. But now with Donald gone, maybe he can finally start to rack up some all-pros and stuff. But then again, you got Dexter Lawrence to worry about, so maybe not. But either way, number 9 on the list. Number 8 is Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, who has done just an unbelievable job since he's been there. Has gotten banged up a little bit this past year, so that hurts for sure. But yeah, I mean, again, what's to say about Jefferson that hasn't already been said? The guy who, if you put 2 guys on him, he's still going to find ways to make catches. One of the best receivers in football. Not the number 1 wide receiver on my list, though. That is Tyreek Hill, who I still feel like, listen, we talk about wide receivers who it's like, okay, you can't really cover that guy one-on-one. But then there's wide receivers like Tyreek Hill, where it's like, it's not just that you shouldn't cover him one-on-one, and that's a bad idea because you could get burned. It's like, if you cover him one-on-one with an all-pro corner, he is going to score a touchdown anyway. That's just not even an option. There has to be help on Tyreek Hill or you're in trouble. So it's kind of funny where I said there's so many 49ers and Chiefs players. We now have a former Chiefs player also making the list of Tyreek Hill. But yeah, he's been unbelievable. You put him in he's been in different systems and been successful. Yeah, to me, he's a top 7 player. Number 6, I'm going Creed Humphrey, the center for the Kansas City Chiefs, who has been in the league for 3 years and has been pretty consistently the best center each of those years. So because of that, I think it's fair to put him in the top 10. I know centers don't always get the credit that they deserve, but Creed Humphrey has been really good, and so I put him in the top 10. Number 5, I am going TJ Watt. Again, I think Steelers fans will be happy to see him in the top 5. I think even if Steelers fans saw TJ Watt at number 1 on the list, they would say that's not high enough. He should be number 0 in that scenario because Steelers fans love TJ Watt, and I get why. Again, the consistent pressure, the consistently leading the league in sacks year after year. It's incredible what he does, and it's not just a pure pass rusher. He is a guy who can cover really well. He can stop the run really well. I actually think his run defense is really underrated. So because of that, that's why I have him at 5. But he is also not the number 1 player at his position. Him and Justin Jefferson, both top 10 guys who aren't number 1 at their position. I went Myles Garrett at 4, and there's certainly a debate to be had between Garrett and Watt. I don't think there's a wrong answer, but for me, I thought Garrett still puts up pretty similar numbers to TJ Watt. The box score numbers tend to favor Watt a little bit, but I think a big part of that is situation. Watt is in typically a better situation than Garrett is. Watt, the Steelers blitz a lot, giving Watt more one-on-one matchups than Garrett gets to deal with. So I decided to give a slight edge to Garrett, but like I said, I don't think it's massive I don't think there's a massive gap, and I do think you could argue TJ Watt. And again, I'm sure Steelers fans will not be happy. I'm in the Myles Garrett better than TJ Watt camp, but I do think it's close between the two. Number 3, another 49er. So the second 49er to make the top 10 is Christian McCaffrey, the running back who I think really kind of, it's weird how with Carolina, he was really good, but also struggled to stay healthy. That was kind of the issue with him. Since coming up over to the 49ers, he's honestly probably been better with them. Part of that might just be situation, but I would still say he's been better with them. And on top of it, has stayed healthy. So when you have both of those two things working, he's been unbelievable. We all know what Christian McCaffrey can do. He's so good in open space. That scheme gets him in open space so frequently. He's incredible. He's number 3 on this list, but is not the highest 49er to make this list. Number 2, I went with Fred Warner, who I have consistently kind of been banging the drum, and every time I do this list, I'm like, is this too high for Fred Warner? I feel like I'm putting him high, but maybe people will disagree. I think it's fair to put him at number 2 on this list at this point. Who's the next closest linebacker to him? And what's crazy is you can say that with some players, who's the next closest? Creed Humphrey, it's who's the next closest center? It's there's some guys, but Creed Humphrey's a really good player. But with Fred Warner, there's other really good linebackers in this list. Although, now that I realize I say that, I had Frank Ragnow at 30, who's also really good. But you get the point I'm trying to make. It's not just that there's a big gap between Warner and the next best linebacker, Demario Davis, because there isn't a good linebacker. It's just because Fred Warner is that good. Again, where would the 49ers be without him? I think he does so much for that defense that he is number 2 on this list. But number 1 is the guy you knew was going to be number 1. I did go Patrick Mahomes, number 1 on this list. The first time in 3 years of doing this list, I went with a quarterback at number 1. I believe last year I went with Trent Williams, and the year before I went Aaron Donald. So now Patrick Mahomes takes the elusive honor of being number 1 on the list. How can you not give it to Patrick Mahomes at this point? For one thing, Trent Williams took a step back and Aaron Donald retired, so that helps out a little bit. But again, I just feel like kind of the way I view this is, where are you in relation to other players at your position? That was, if you're ever curious, why did I go with one player over this player? That's usually probably why. For Mahomes, again, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, these are incredible, potential Hall of Fame level quarterbacks, and they're really not even close to what Mahomes is doing right now. I think Mahomes is playing at such a high level. Even if you don't pay attention to positional value, I still think he's number 1 on the list. So that is why I have him there. That is my top 100. Definitely a fun exercise, and I'm sure there's going to be disagreements in the comments, but like I said, that's part of the fun of these lists. So thanks to everyone who watched, whether this was your first you saw, or whether this is the 10th you saw and you watched all of them. I appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.